Welcome, and thanks for joining us at the Grown-Ups Table. I'm Dave Patterson.
And I'm Dylan Daquano. This is the podcast where we talk to you about the shit you never learned, but you probably should have. What's going on, Dave?
Not too much. How about you?
Good. We're
doing it differently this time,
yeah, we're here in person, live, in person together.
Yeah. I mean, live for us,
Live
not
for
for
us.
anybody listening.
Yeah. We don't have a video on our screen. We just have our own faces.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah. It's weird. Weird to be people again.
Somehow this seems more complicated to us.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't sound too funny. We're hoping that mics don't pick up. We don't really know what we're doing in person. We only know what we're doing when we're apart.
Yeah, so we got used to one thing and are throwing a wrench in that plan now, but we'll make it work.
Yeah. Well, what's going on? What's new with you?
Oh, man. What's new? You know, I never think to prep for that question. You ask every week, what have you been working on?
What are you working on? What's new?
I'm getting back into running.
Yeah?
I haven't done any real running in like 7 or 8 years. Running a 10K in November.
Nice.
And then hoping to do a half marathon in June.
That's cool.
So been doing a lot of that.
Just outside?
Yeah. Got some new shoes because my shins were killing me, and it's like I gotta actually get some decent running shoes here.
There you go.
So learning some lessons the hard way, but we're getting there, trying to bring up my distances slowly.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that YouTube video? Like, what's your opinion on winter running in the snow?
Man,
do you know that video I'm talking about?
I know what one you're talking about.
The woman who's just so smug, like, actually, it's like a light, comfortable blanket that you run on. It's so nice running in the snow. Immediately walks away and slips and falls on her ass.
Yeah. See, I've never been serious enough about running to like do that before. Yeah. We'll see. My 10K is in November, so hopefully pre-snow or pre-serious snow.
Yeah.
And then the half marathon's not till June, so
that's some time.
Hopefully I can not have to do too much through like December, January.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see. I'm sure I'll fall on my ass at some point. I don't need snow for that.
I hope so.
Like,
I hope you do, just for my own amusement.
You'll be there with the camera.
Yeah. I'll just follow you everywhere you go. We should maybe down the road get our buddy John to come and talk about running.
Crazy.
He did a
double marathon,
but not actually in a marathon, just on his own. He was just like, I'm just going to run 84.6 kilometers, and did it in flip-flops, or not flip-flops, but like running sandals.
But like the concept of running sandals is ridiculous in the first place.
Yeah, it's pretty silly.
My feet would have been a bloody shredded mess.
Yeah.
But pretty awesome. Good for him. I've been getting lots of pointers from him.
Yeah, we should get him.
He's a whole other level.
Maybe that's something people need to know about. Like not just fitness, but like running. And
and I think running's one of those things where like the concept of it isn't overly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Like go point A to point B as fast as you can.
Yeah.
But then when you're doing it a lot and you're ramping up distances, there's more to it that you need to be aware of, like form and equipment and pacing and things like that you kind of end up having to learn the hard way.
Yeah. You actually can't just run as fast as you can the whole time.
I'm pretty bad at pacing right now. I haven't done enough running to have a good sense of it. So I always set out with like, oh, I'm going to run like a 540 kilometer pace. And then my watch buzzes after the first kilometer. I did it in like 508. And it's like, well, shit, that's going to come back to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Yeah.
Anyways, what's new with you?
Honestly, the last couple weeks, you've been there for both of these things. I've been just trying to plan birthday stuff for my wife, Emily. She turned 30 on the 28th. And I wanted to do something nice for her the week before. So we just went out and did some stuff together, and then met up with some friends, you included, and went out for dinner and went to an escape room. And then
it was awesome.
Last night we had a surprise party for her in my backyard, and it's pretty fun. We had a keg.
She was surprised.
Yeah.
That's what counts.
Played spike ball, played beer pong. It was kind of just like a college
weather was
party.
Perfect.
Oh,
it's like 24 and sunny yesterday, and today it's like 18 and pouring rain. So
we lucked out.
Lucky there.
Yeah, we're recording this here on October 3rd.
Yeah. So it was pretty ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. The big 3-0.
Yeah. So happy birthday, M, again. And I'm glad that all of it's done. To be perfectly honest, it was a lot of keeping secrets is hard when you live with someone and you're like trying to throw a party at your own house. Like, where do I put things?
Yeah, that's very tough.
So I had to do a lot of delegation of tasks, but it worked out.
Never noticed.
Yeah, no, she was surprised. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's kind of what I've been up to. Other than that,
set the bar high for your birthday, though.
No, I told her don't do anything for me this year. It's just 29. It's not a big one. So, but 30.
That's a biggie.
That's a biggie. That's why I wanted to do it. It was her 30th.
Get that seniors discount at Costco.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I guess otherwise just been. I mean, by the time this comes out, it might be different, but we're anxiously awaiting the results of Jays game, Yankees game,
Red
Sox game.
Yeah, this could by the time this comes out, I could hear this and just get really angry.
Yeah, or get really
fired up.
So
could go either way.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, it's the final game of the MLB season
game
today.
162.
Yeah.
Potential for game 163. We'll find out. That's always fun.
So that's kind of what I've been doing, just keeping tabs on the Jays and hockey starting up, and you know,
that time of year.
That's kind of one of the best parts about fall, in my opinion.
All the sports lining up.
Yeah, because pretty much summer is just baseball and CFL if you're into that, which most people really aren't, but some
you're
people
in
are.
Hamilton, man. Now I got a
Ticats hat. Don't you worry. But yeah, like everything is going all at the same time, kind of in September,
it's
October.
A lot of fun if you're a sports fan.
Yeah, a lot going on.
For sure. So who's our guest this week, Dylan?
I am the guest this week.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
So I work in insurance. I'm not going to get into details of who I work for and whatnot, but yeah, we're just going to chat about...
We're going to offer specific rates for specific
people.
No,
we absolutely are not. We are going to give you general ideas on maybe how to approach your mindset on insurance and things to look out for, things to be aware of. Maybe the average consumer of insurance doesn't know. Every company operates a little differently, but yeah, there's some general things that kind of across the board, either insurance companies are going to be looking for, maybe where you go to get your insurance, how you find the best rate, those kinds of things. So I don't sell insurance. I'm an underwriter. So I kind of look at people's insurance policies.
So I should go get my policies out right now. We can just walk through them while recording.
No, we shouldn't do that. It's insurance is a very regulated thing.
Yeah.
In Canada, and there's a lot of rules.
As it probably should be.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure people aren't being taken advantage of.
No mob insurance.
Exactly. Companies got to adhere to certain rules and standards and practices, and they get audited all the time, so they make sure that people are getting the proper things.
Yeah.
But there are things that the consumer might not be aware of, and yeah, we can get into it.
I was going to say, we don't have to give it all away right now.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go. But it's kind of cool to be recording this together in person.
Yeah, it feels very strange.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go to edit it and find it disastrous, but
we'll see.
Get there when we get there.
I know that there's not a pause button on the recording, but
yes, there is.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh, well. We should get some coffee or something. Okay, well, we did figure out we can pause, and it's because I needed to ask the question. I noticed we're in person, and we didn't have anything in front of us. So, Dave, I'm going to ask a question. What are we drinking this afternoon?
Drinking a little coffee,
a little black coffee,
because I think the guy across from you might be feeling it a
little bit. It was a fun, like I said, we had a keg, so I think that explains itself.
I do recall holding one of your legs up over your head at some point.
I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
So we got some hot black coffee and some cold water. Real fun
Step
afternoon.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
So insurance. How long you been working in insurance now?
I started working in insurance in 2016 as an underwriter. I started as a junior underwriter, which kind of means I'll just get into what underwriting is, because
I feel like everybody's heard somebody say they're an underwriter before, but might not know what it means.
There's underwriting in a lot of different professions: mortgage underwriting, life insurance underwriting. If you're getting like your bank account or whatever, and there's some sort of benefits involved with that, they might ask you about, you're going to get an underwriting survey or something like that, or like. But basically what an underwriter does is that the company has set out certain criteria that they're looking for in the policies that they want to write. They want to, I don't know, write someone who's got roofs that are less than 25 years old. They want, if you've got 60 amp electrical, they want you to make sure that you have an electrical safety inspection. If you've got aluminum wiring, then they might want to get a safety inspection, or it's just something they don't write. Some companies are more strict about certain things than others. Some companies would like care about what your hot water tank was replaced. Other companies might not even use that as a factor. So what an underwriter does is, if there's new policies coming through from a broker, they would basically look at them and say, yes, this meets our criteria. No, it doesn't. Or they'll kind of look in the gray area and say, we can make this work, but this is what we need to do. We need to maybe increase this deductible here. Or just it's a straight up decline. So that's kind of what I do. I'm kind of the bad guy, to be honest. For some people,
you have to say no to a lot of stuff.
Got to say no to some people. But the way that the industry works as well is that there are direct writers, which would be, you go to TD Insurance, you go to RBC Insurance, and they provide you insurance. Mm-hmm. So they're underwritten and deal with the clients directly. Or there's broker underwriting. So, or broker based insurance, I guess. And that's what I'm in, where you would go to an insurance broker and they would look at all of these different companies who provide insurance, who they write with. And based on the info that you've given, each one is going to have a different price, because they rate things differently, because they can't all rate things and create prices based on the same thing due to competition laws and stuff like that. So when I started in insurance, I was a junior underwriter, basically had to work within the exact manual, the way that it was set out from the company, couldn't vary from that at all. If I needed to, then I need to raise it up to like a senior underwriter, or just like a regional underwriter who could make those accommodations. Then I became a portfolio underwriter. So if a brokerage was moving their book of business from one company to our company, helping them do that, because maybe there's some gaps in information that wouldn't have been collected by the old company that we need, and just making sure that it's all rated accurately. And then now I am a regional underwriter. So I work.
Is that like a regional manager?
No, it's not a manager. I'm not an assistant to the regional manager. I'm not Dwight. But basically, what I do is I have a region that I do the underwriting for, and I deal with a specific group of brokers. They come to me if they need any questions. A lot of brokers just enter stuff manually into our system, and then it goes through and it doesn't need any underwriter intervention. But if it's one of those policies where it's like, this person's never had insurance before, because that can be a rate factor or an acceptability factor, then it might hit some sort of filter, and I'll have to go back to the broker and say, what's the situation with this client? How long have you known them? Do their parents have insurance with you? Like, kind of them to make a case for why we're going to write this person. Because it's riskier writing someone who's never had insurance before. You're like, you're 55 years old and you've never had tenants insurance. That seems weird. Now all of a sudden you want it.
Auto insurance, something.
Yeah. So are you like, and a lot of the reason that we'd be asking that question is like, did you just have a loss and now you're going to take out an insurance policy to try to cover this loss you already had? Because that's not what insurance is supposed to be. Insurance is supposed to be, you purchase it in order to protect yourself from an unseen circumstance. But if it's something that's already happened, that's not unforeseen.
That's a repair bill.
Exactly. And that's what we say as well. We're not a maintenance policy. We're not here to maintain your house. We're here to be there in case something catastrophic happens to your house.
Right.
Neighbor's house burns down, and then you get smoke damage on the side of your house, and like you have to get all the siding replaced.
Tree falls on your roof.
On your roof. Like lots of different scenarios.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a bit of a background on me and how I don't know what I do and where we're at and basic operations of a personal lines insurance. And commercial is totally different. I don't work in commercial at all, so I don't know anything about what they do really. But, yeah. So I'm basically home and auto and some watercraft stuff, personal use only.
So I just insured a boat. A small, cheap, old fishing boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it added like $3 a month to my plan. But that was, I was surprised that was added to my home plan.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I just assumed it would have been added to the auto plan. I don't know why. It just seemed more natural.
No, it's because auto is differently regulated because auto, you have to file specific rules, the company does, with the regulator. And boats wouldn't fall under that. So boats are a possession, and your home insurance policy, it covers all your possessions. It's like if you have an auto loss, and you lost a bunch of contents, though you would have to make an auto claim and a home claim because those contents in your car generally aren't covered by your auto policy. They're covered by your home policy. The auto policy covers the car itself and not the stuff you put in it. So that's why the boat would be added. That makes
a lot of sense, yeah.
And that's another thing that maybe a lot of people don't realize as well. And one thing I will say, if you are a young person and you're getting an apartment for the first time or something like that, get tenants insurance.
I was going to ask about that because you mentioned it before, but that's something I feel like a lot of people either don't know about or don't think is important, or they don't understand the value of it. So you recommend it, obviously. Yeah. What is it and why should you get it?
So tenants insurance basically covers your belongings inside a unit. You don't own the unit because you're renting.
Right.
So the policy doesn't cover the house itself, doesn't cover the walls. It just covers your belongings that are in there. So it's also fairly inexpensive. I would say most people's tenants insurance policies range between $200 to $350 a year, which is not a whole lot of money. Can equal about $20 a month.
So it's intended to prevent or to assist in case of theft or something, right?
Theft, or let's say
flood
flood. And there usually is a separate endorsement you'd have to add on your policy for water damage. That's not covered in most base wordings. There's usually just a separate thing you add for that. But also if the building does burn down or something, and you've got your bed, all your clothes,
your TV, whatever belongings,
your couch, your coffee table, you insure generally up to $25,000 is the minimum that a tenant's insurance policy will be, because you don't realize you probably do have close to that much stuff in there. Think about all of the clothing that you own. You've got a couple shirts, maybe they're $50 shirts or something, like a nicer shirt, some pants. Like if you lose all of that and you have to go and buy a full new wardrobe, that's pretty expensive.
That's going to hurt.
If you need to buy your new comforter, if you have
electronics,
like your DVD player, if you still have one, your Xbox, your computer, your cell phone, like if all those things are in your house and you don't have tenants insurance, you're out of luck. So even if the building burns down or something like that, usually, like if you live in an apartment building, presumably your apartment should have its own insurance. But if you're in a house,
that's not your concern.
Not your concern, because you don't own any of that stuff. And also,
other than maybe find better landlords, but
yeah. And another thing to note, when you get a tenant's insurance policy, it also, most policies will have a minimum legal liability limit on there of $1 million. So if you get sued for something, then you can lean on your insurance company to help you out with those legal costs if you're liable for something. So that's another thing that comes with every insurance policy. You also would have that on your auto, but that would be for things directly related to automobile. For most wordings, I believe anyway, for legal liability, it's for you anywhere in the world. It doesn't just have to be at your house. You have
that
coverage.
Makes sense.
So you're getting quite a lot of value for
so if you're on vacation in a different province and you've rented a car, whatever,
that would be under auto,
but you still
anything other than auto though.
Yeah.
Like let's say you do something out there and I don't know, it results in someone getting seriously injured or something. You're in a hotel maybe and you fill a bucket of ice and then outside your door, you leave it there and there's water all over the floor and tiles and someone slips and hurts themselves and someone tries to sue you for that. You've got some sort of protection there, at least financially from your insurance company, if you're held liable. So it's good to know that exists. And maybe a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. I'm not sure how those claims are settled either because I don't work in claims.
Yeah, and those are very specific situations, right?
Yeah, but at least you have some sort of coverage there. Take a look at your policy wordings if you have it. Another reason I suggest anyone who's like, if you're like 22 years old and you're getting your first place and you need tenants insurance, some landlords require it now because a lot of insurance companies will say if you're renting out a part of your home, you need to ensure that those renters have their own tenants insurance because their contents won't be covered on your policy and they might try to come after you if your house burns down.
Right. So a lot of landlords, if it's especially competitive market to get an apartment,
they might require you to have it. But it's also good to have because you build some sort of trust and longevity with your insurance company. So if you have an insurance company an insurance policy for 8 years and you never have a claim, and then you go to look at another company, they're like, okay, this guy's had 8 years of insurance. We'll write him for sure. Whereas if now all of a sudden you're trying to buy your first house and you're 33 years old or something like that, and they're like, why has this guy never had any form of insurance before? Because they're not looking at your auto. They're only looking at your prior home insurance. Same can be said for auto, but auto, I'm not probably going to talk as much about that, I don't think, because it's a requirement that you have auto insurance.
Yes, it's more what one you choose. It's not a...
Yeah, and what coverages you want.
Well, and then talking about both of those, I know personally, my auto insurance originally was under my parents' plan. Mm-hmm. And then when I got old enough and got my own car, I stayed with the same brokerage, but just moved it to my own plan. So I was getting the bill. Mm-hmm. And then when I bought my house and I bought home insurance, I realized that I was going to save a hell of a lot of money if I moved my auto insurance to the people I got my home insurance with and bundled it.
Yeah.
So is that something that generally people should be aware of? It's worth changing?
It can be for sure. And that's also why I would recommend a lot of the time going to a broker, because they've got access to a ton of different companies who they can see what you're going to get the best bang for your buck with. Because sometimes, depending on your profile, if you're someone who has a lot of tickets or you've had some serious convictions in the past on your driving record, it might not be the best move to move your auto insurance, because the next carrier might not want to write you because of those reasons. But if you're already with a company for a while and you have history with them, a lot of the time they'll continue writing you unless you have some sort of real bugaboo on there, and then you got to move to, there's high risk markets. And
right, that makes sense.
There's another area of the insurance market called facility, which is for those policies that most regular insurance companies, it doesn't fit their underwriting rules, so they can't write you. So you kind of pay more premium, but you still get auto insurance.
How many cars do you have to crash before you have to go that route?
It depends. And a lot of the time it has to do with if the claims are, if you're at fault. Obviously, you can't help if people keep bumping into the back of your car. But
Yeah.
if insurance companies see that you've had 6 claims in the past 3 years where you keep getting hit, I mean, you're not at fault on any of them technically, but there's a pattern there. And they're like, we got to stop paying out all this money on this guy. We don't want him anymore. And they might try to get you off the books. Right. So there are certain rules in the auto insurance world where they can only do it if it meets a certain criteria, if they don't want to write you anymore. But I mean, hopefully that's not happening. And honestly, it's a lot further and fewer and further between than I think you'd expect. But it happens a lot. And for me, that's mostly what I see, because the good stuff is passing through without any sort of underwriting intervention. The system that I work on will just manually be like, okay, this is a fine risk. So I'm seeing all the ones that are like, this might need an extra set of eyes and a decision to be made for the company to see if we want to continue writing this guy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I know one of the things when I bought my house and was looking at home insurance, you can go online to 100 different companies and get on free online quotes really quickly.
Yeah.
So I got a ton of those, and some of them were really, really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very tempting to say, I mean, home insurance isn't insane to begin with, but it was very tempting to go the really cheap route.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I did a lot more research, it kept coming up that, going through a brokerage based insurance, if something ever happens, things are going to be a lot smoother.
Well, you'll have someone who's going to fight for you.
Yeah.
Because they know the industry and they know the terminology. Whereas if you go directly to a company, it's just you and them. Mm-hmm. If you go to a broker, they might be able to help you solve some things. They might be able to help you interpret your policy wordings.
Often an improved customer service.
Yeah, I would say that too. Often it's better coverages that you're going to get too. Like, sure, you can buy your insurance policy through whoever, but just read what you're buying. Like, I think most people probably don't read their policy wordings and know exactly what they're covered for, know what is excluded in their policy. Because sometimes there's exclusions where you'd be like, oh, I've had all this like water damage in my basement. And then they go and pull it up and they find some mold back there. Basically, if there's mold, it's probably not going to be covered by most companies. Or you don't realize that you don't even have any water coverage on your policy at all because you bought it online. You didn't think about it. You might think that that's just something that's covered. For the most part, it's not something that's just covered. It's something you need to add on. And if you go to a broker, they're going to ask you those questions. Like, what do you need? Do you live in a certain zone that's prone to flooding? Will the insurance company...
often they're local, right? So you're talking to somebody who knows the area better as well.
Yeah. And I think that's another reason that going to a broker versus there's a lot of, there's some brokerages out there that are a brokerage, but it's all online.
I'm sure some aren't great.
Yeah. Some aren't great, but some are really great. And some people stay with their, I think my dad's been with his broker for like the whole time he's been an adult, because he's lived in the same town.
I think my dad's the same way.
Yeah.
And he met this dude at like a mall kiosk in like 1982 and has had a plan with him ever since.
Yeah. And I think that a broker is very similar to what we had Dustin on last week.
Yeah.
And it's going that route and having someone who knows the industry a little bit more. It doesn't cost you anything more to go to a broker. The broker will get a commission from the insurance company, but you don't see that. It doesn't affect what you're paying because you're paying the premium. That's something that is going to be regulated based on who you are. You don't get charged more because you're working with a broker. So that's another good thing to know. That's why I would always recommend going with that. Maybe I am slightly biased by working at a company that has brokers, but I also there's different departments of most insurance companies where they have a direct market as well. And some people like to just go right to their, know who their agent is who's looking at their policy. So it kind of works both ways.
Well, and obviously it depends too. Like I know when I was looking, the difference for me was maybe $30 a month. It was going to cost me more to be with a brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, it adds up. However, it wasn't something that I couldn't afford. Now, some people might be in a situation where an extra $30 a month really stretches them thin, and that's its own thing. I can't speak to that. You have to do what's right for you.
For sure.
But for me, I thought to have that, because insurance is that thing where you hope you never need it.
Yes.
But when you do need it, you really need it.
Yeah.
And like, if my house burns down, I'm going to be really mad if I'm on hold with some company for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be in the mood for that bullshit.
Exactly.
And to have a brokerage where, mine's right down the street from me. I can go knock on the door if I have to. You can have somebody who makes those calls for you, who has direct numbers instead of a 1-800 number.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is when you deal with a broker, you don't deal with the insurance company directly ever, unless you're in a claim, you deal with the claims department, but you never deal with the underwriter. You never deal with the person who's looking at your policy. You deal with the broker. They're the middleman. They are the person who is supposed to help both the client and the company.
Yeah.
Basically.
And there's value. There was value in my mind of, if I'm ever in that situation, I'm not going to want that added stress and chaos and disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. Another general piece of advice I would give for people who maybe don't know much about insurance is always pay your premiums. Don't get a cancellation for non-payment. Because
that goes to everything.
It really does. But in insurance, seeing a cancellation for non-payment is a big red flag on the underwriting side. And if they see that you've had, sometimes it'll just be in the rules. If you have a cancellation for non-payment, we're not going to write you. If you have 2, we're definitely not going to write you. So like once you get canceled for non-payment, it's hard to get insurance again because it's not a requirement necessarily. Insurance companies don't have to write homes, whereas insurance companies do have to write cars. There's a lot more, you legally need to have car insurance to drive a car. You don't legally need to have home insurance to own a home. You should. And maybe your mortgage requires that you have one. But just to own one, if you're mortgage free, you don't need to have home insurance, but please do for your own benefit. And like having cancellation for non-payments really, it can be a big deal to the insurance company because they don't want to write people who don't pay them. And also, if you get canceled for non-payment or if your policy lapses on your own accord, don't have a gap between that, because the next time you try to write an insurance policy, they'll be like, why haven't you had insurance for a year and a half? Are you just trying to get it now because you had a loss and now you feel like you want to try to claim what happened in the past as a current thing with a new policy?
Right.
So insurance companies, they have very smart people who look for all those kinds of things and red flags, and people much smarter than me.
That's a bit of a brag.
No, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the people who are way higher up who actually like look at all of these things, not on a case by case basis, just on a company wide, like this is what we want to write or not, and how they look out for those things. Any other?
Well, I was just going to say that kind of goes back to when we had Riley on talking about small claims court and being served and basically failing to pay and all of these things, and just how important it is to have a decent credit history. And like, it's again, just, you can't run from this stuff. It's tough.
That's another thing that maybe people don't know can have an impact on your insurance premium is your credit score.
That has an impact on everything these days. I got a new phone plan and they did a credit check.
Yep. Yeah. And your actual credit score, which the company generally doesn't actually see, but it like can have a huge discount on there. If you have really good credit, you're going to pay less in insurance.
Same with your mortgage, whatever.
Yeah. If you have really bad credit, you're going to pay more. And it's kind of like, I've always thought a weird catch-22 situation.
It snowballs.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happens, right? Once you are in debt on one thing, and for whatever reason, maybe it's student loans and you've struggled to pay them off, and you're in an area where you have to pay a fortune on rent, and it cuts into what you can pay off and other things. Like, it's not always some self-inflicted, you ate too much avocado toast situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But either way, it definitely snowballs once it gets started.
Yeah. So try to pay all of your bills on time and in full, and
automatic payments.
Yes, exactly. Do that where you can. And honestly, it can have a big impact on the premiums you're going to pay over time in insurance. Another coverage that a lot of people aren't, probably most people are kind of aware of it because you hear it talked about on commercials and stuff, but like a claims protection kind of thing on your auto policy, if you're eligible for it, take advantage of it. It's usually only like probably between $40 to $60 a year, depends on the company. But basically, if you're a driver who has a claims-free history of every company, it's going to be different, but for most, probably between 6 and 8 years of claims-free history, you qualify for this coverage, which you can buy. And basically, if you get in an accident that you're at fault for, it won't count against your driving record. So your driving record isn't going to drop based on that. Whereas if you don't have this coverage and you get in an at-fault accident, your driving record's going to drop and you're going to pay more in premium. Because premiums are also based off of past driving history. If you have a lot of convictions, if you have a lot of accidents, you're going to pay more. If you're a brand new driver, you're going to pay more. Everyone knows that rule. When you turn 25, your premiums go down, which isn't always necessarily the case. I would say if you were licensed when you turned 16 and you haven't had an accident and you haven't had any tickets, then you will probably see a decrease because you get rated as a different type of driver.
That makes sense.
Basically, they call it an underage driver. When you're under 25, you're not underage. But that's how they consider it. And once you hit that threshold, then your premiums usually do have a little bit of a difference because you're rated differently. But also, if you're something to watch out for, if you're not licensed right now and you decide to get your license and you're above the age of 25 or something like that, you probably still will see higher premiums because you don't have that experience. You haven't built any sort of trust.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's the same situation. You've just delayed it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's basically how premium is generated, is like it's kind of legal gambling, I would say. Maybe companies don't like to use that, but that's what they're doing, is they're charging you an amount of money and taking a bet that you're not going to have a loss. And the premium that they charge you is supposed to be adequate to cover that kind of thing, right?
Makes sense.
Over time. And then if you do have a loss, like, they'll be there to help you. That's why they're there. It's a necessary evil, a lot of people say. No one really likes dealing with insurance.
Well, because there's a lot of people who pay their insurance, make their insurance payments their whole life. Nothing happens.
Yep.
No tree falls on their house.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like, well, that was a lot of money. But on the other hand, if you didn't pay that and something did happen, you'd be screwed. So it's, it is what it is.
Exactly.
Get the best deal, but you kind of do need it. Yeah. Now, one thing, I don't know if it's big. I've seen commercials involving this. Maybe it's more American. These things that monitor your driving so that your insurance rates are adjusted. Is that, a big thing now?
Yeah, it's really becoming a bigger thing in Canada. It's called UBI, or usage-based insurance, is what most people, like companies, call it. They'll have like their own names for it, but they're generally an app on your phone that you download that kind of just tracks your driving. So like, it knows that you're in a car because of how you're moving.
Right.
And it takes into account a lot of different things, like how fast you stop, what speeds you're going, how kind of erratic if you do like a lot of crazy turns really quickly. Like it tracks that information and gives you a discount based on how you drive. So you can often get a discount of like up to 30% for these.
But if you're a maniac,
I don't know that, at least for my company, it can never negatively impact.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it never goes the opposite way. So I would recommend, if your company has that, look into what it entails and maybe enroll yourself in that. It really is just designed to make better drivers, because if you know...
Yeah, it has people be conscious of what they're doing because they want to save money.
Yeah, exactly.
Incentivizing it.
And I don't think that, like I said, most companies have it negatively impact you. If you drive like a maniac, then you're just not going to get a discount.
Yeah.
But for a lot of these programs, just for enrolling in them, you automatically will get some sort of discount, maybe 10%, maybe more, maybe less. And then after like a certain amount of time of you using it, then they reevaluate, and then you might be like, oh, you're a great driver. You're actually going to get a 25% discount on your premium.
So would you have to continue having this app track you at that point?
Yeah.
So the discount is contingent on that?
Yes. You need to be enrolled in whatever program, and you need to continue to use it. Now, let's say you're in a car and you're not driving. You can record that on your trips. You usually just open the app and say, I wasn't driving.
Oh, got it.
These apps also take into consideration if you are using your phone while you're driving.
Oh.
If you're opening your phone while you're driving, it tracks that. If you are texting while you're driving, it tracks that. It doesn't track the information.
Now, what if you're using a service like Android Auto or Apple? What's the Apple one? Autoplay, CarPlay?
So I think that insurance companies, even if you're using hands-free and you're making a phone call, you're still not 100% focused.
So they still don't like it.
They still don't like it, but it's not going to be as bad as if you open your phone, dial a phone number, and then make a call, or like use a Google search.
Or send a ridiculously long text.
Yeah. But even if you're using like a speech to voice thing, or voice to speech or whatever, and talk, it probably does, but it's pretty insignificant compared to if you actually pick your phone up while you're driving. Like I said, if you're enrolled in one of these programs and you're a passenger in a car and it thinks you're driving, just tap, I'm not driving.
Yeah.
And it really is supposed to be like an honor system, I guess, in a lot of ways. I guess you could open it and say, I'm not driving every time you get in the car. But also, these companies need the information on when you are driving. So they can't generate a discount if you're never driving. And a lot of these companies will be like, you need to drive at least 2,000 kilometers in 6 months for us to be able to give you a score.
Right.
So if you just say you're not driving every
that's
time.
not that much, but yeah.
It's not that much. But I think that during COVID as well, because people were driving a lot less, they had taken away the minimum kilometers.
Got it.
But yeah, so that's definitely something that people can take advantage of. And I would recommend everyone do, because you're probably going to get a discount right off the bat for enrolling.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, you're going to probably drive better. Because I have a friend who I was with, and he's like, oh, I got new insurance and now I have this thing on my phone. And so like, I basically like never speed anymore. And I like really like slow down approaching a stop sign and like
trying to get his money's worth.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Not
think
a bad thing.
I think it's a good thing if everyone has this kind of thing. And maybe some people are like, oh, it's my privacy. It's Big Brother watching me.
I mean, you definitely have to have a personal comfort level with Big Brother. But then if you're turning on Waze.
Yeah, exactly. They're not tracking information. They're not tracking phone calls. They're just tracking that you made a phone call while you're driving. They're tracking that you made
an activity log.
Exactly. It's not an information log.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they use anything like where you're driving as part of that either.
Right.
Like they're not going to be like, oh, this guy drives through this city every day, so his rate's going to be higher because this is where he's driving based on where he lives. I don't think there's anything like that involved.
That makes sense.
I don't know how every company tracks it. So if you have a broker, ask them about that program.
Yeah.
And if your company doesn't offer it, you can also ask your broker about options to maybe switch to a company that does, if that's something you want. That's another great reason to have a broker, though, is they'll know all the different companies and the programs that they have and the coverages that they have. Because some companies, like I said before, there was a claims protection where if you've had a good driving record and you get in an accident, then they won't count that against your record. Some companies also have a conviction thing. So if you get your first speeding ticket and you've never had a speeding ticket before, they're not going to rate that if you've purchased this coverage.
Yeah.
Whereas if you haven't purchased it, then it will be rated on your renewal kind of thing. That's another thing too, is if you get a speeding ticket during the middle of your policy term, you're not going to see an increase like right away. They can't change your rate midterm. They can only change it on renewal. Or if you get a new vehicle or something, obviously that's going to be a midterm change. But
makes sense.
Yeah, kind of all over the place here, you know, just kind of rambling. But
there's a lot to it, and it's, you know, it's something you don't need it. Crap, I need it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's good to think about it ahead of time and know what your options are.
Yeah.
Then we got the big question, though.
What's the big question?
What have you been streaming?
Ooh. What have I been streaming?
Yeah, clearly you did not prep for this one.
No, I didn't. I haven't been watching a lot.
That's fair.
Lately. It's getting to spooky season, so I'm trying to watch like some horror movies and TV shows. You know that show American Horror Story?
Yeah.
There is I think it's a brand new series called American Horror Stories.
Okay.
Where it's not like, so American Horror Story, I've only seen one season of that, but I know each season is different. They're like
different themes. Yeah. Somehow we stopped recording.
Oh no.
We're good now.
Okay.
I have no idea where that stopped. I just looked and it was paused.
Oh, maybe we lost a couple seconds.
Okay.
Who knows? It should be editable.
Anyways, American Horror Stories. Hopefully we got that in.
Yeah. So that's one thing I've been watching. Yeah, I don't know. There's a new series on Amazon that came out, All or Nothing, which is about the Leafs last year.
For people who didn't get enough heartbreak in May.
Yeah, if you want to really just hurt yourself again, you can watch that. I'm going to watch it. I'm not quite as upset about it as people were at the time I was. It's sports. Teams lose. Like,
yeah, but they fucking shouldn't, man.
They shouldn't, but they lost to the team that went to the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No, boo-hoo. Then it should be Stanley Cup finals there, not theirs.
It should be. That's right. But at the same time, Montreal beat some other really good hockey teams. So, I mean, I get it. I get why people are mad. I do. But I'm hoping that maybe this sheds some light, or at least some personality on these guys. I think that we got some good guys on the Leafs, and I don't want them to feel like everyone hates them. They're just
then they should perform better when it counts, man.
Some of them, that's hard. You do it.
I don't. Yeah. I also don't make $10 million a year.
Yeah, I know. Well, those are kind of what I've been into, or at least wanting to get into a little bit. How about you? You been watching anything?
Last week I watched the final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh,
big fan of the show. Yeah. So I was kind of anxious to see it. Came out on Netflix. Watched that.
Nice.
Yeah, it was tough. I felt like the last season I was like, yeah, it's run its course.
Yeah.
Like it was still good, but you could just kind of like, where else can the storylines go? You know, a lot of shows hit a point like that. They had 8 years. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And this season, you know, they always took a lot of pride in trying to like address social justice stuff in the show. And I think everything that happened from when they were shut down last time due to COVID, and then George Floyd and all of these other things, it was a very different environment to be making a cop show in.
Yeah.
And I think they they felt understandably obligated to try and address that in some way.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of the content ended up being focused on that, which is a good thing, but it definitely made it a little like they tried to balance that with like, also we're ending this series and here's some of the stuff everybody's loved.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a very difficult line for them to walk. So it wasn't like the best, but you know, they did what they had to do.
Yeah. That's cool.
Respect. Sometimes with a show like that too, when you've made it that far, you just see it out.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Stop watching with 4 episodes left? Come on. Don't lie.
Finish it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. We finished the first season of Heroes, and
Nice.
as we got towards the end of it, it really kind of does just not be as good as it was at the beginning, but you're like, I got to finish it.
Yeah.
At least the season.
You're committed.
Yeah. Back on that, you were just talking about social justice and stuff like that. Something that just happened last week here up in Canada was the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which maybe we should just quickly...
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Like, if you don't know what that is, basically it's a date that has now been officially put into the national holidays calendar for reconciling some of the stuff that happened.
And it was kind of confusing in Canada too, because some provinces made it statutory and some, like Ontario where we are, did not.
Yeah, they left it up to employers to decide how they wanted to treat the day.
So it was kind of, I know a lot of people had kind of this, is it a holiday? And then it's also it's different because it's not like a holiday like Christmas or Thanksgiving where you're getting together with all your family, or May 2-4, let's go get drunk at the cottage.
For sure.
It's more of a day to kind of reflect and think about our past as a nation a little bit more deeply than perhaps we have, or go to Tofino.
Yeah. Not to call anyone out. But yeah, for those of you who don't know what that's about, it's about the residential schools which operated in Canada from like the 1800s till almost the year 2000.
96, the last one closed.
Basically pulling people away from their families and trying to take the culture out of them.
Well, it was genocide.
Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't, there's a commission for the final report that has 94 calls to action. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at that, what the government has said that they would like to do. So I feel like the more people who read that and hold them to account, the closer we actually get to reconciling any of those things. So just wanted to take a quick moment. I know it's not really the tone of this podcast all the time. That's Dave's dog shaking out right there, if y'all heard that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not always the tone we have, but it's something I think is important to talk about. So go take a look, and thanks for
absolutely
taking a couple minutes to listen to us talk about that.
Yeah. And on that note, I guess that's about it for this episode.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a shorter one, little different.
Different pace.
Hopefully it didn't feel too rambly from me, because we just were like, let's try this in person and let's just roll with it and see where the conversation goes.
It was good. A lot of good info. Some stuff I definitely did not know about insurance. So thank you for sharing your expertise.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's one of those things where if you aren't in the industry,
you just don't know.
You wouldn't know, but it's something everyone has and probably should know a little bit more about.
Impacts you in some way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have to have you back on the show sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to come back maybe 2 weeks from now. So, all right. I'll talk to you later. Wait, how do we end this?
I don't know.
No, we have a way we normally end these things.
As always, you can find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. I'm going to stop saying hopefully soon Apple Podcasts. We're working on it. It's a long bullshit thing. But you can find us most places you look for your podcasts.
Be sure to give us a follow, check us out on Instagram, and give us a rating wherever you listen if you like the episode. And stay tuned for some more upcoming episodes. We'll see you again at the Grown-Ups Table.